Hi, I'm Heidi Arens. This is Liliana and this is Molly. We're here today as a team from the Center for New Medicine. We're going to be talking about prevention. And what is prevention? Why is it important? Why are we passionate about it? And how can we help you on your journey with preventing any health conditions or diseases? So we are a team that's passionate about helping you identify where are some imbalances in your body, where are there some symptoms. Maybe you have some underlying symptoms that are kind of nagging you. You may not have a diagnosable condition yet, but you have some symptoms, and we want to look at those because they're warning lights, they're warning signs that there could be a problem going on underneath the hood in the body that we need to identify and investigate. So we want to just tell you about what we do here at the clinic, how we can identify those things, and how can we reverse them and correct them so that you don't develop any chronic conditions or chronic diseases. So when we look at, if you were a new patient coming to our clinic, we would give you a questionnaire, find out what's going on with your body, where are those symptoms that you might be experiencing. You may have some genetic or family history of certain conditions. You may have some symptoms that are concerning, or you might be at risk for a disease. What we want to do is identify those things and help prevent them. So what I see on a daily basis is I see patients who come in with various symptoms. Maybe they have brain fog. Maybe they have gut issues, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. Maybe they have joint pain or inflammation somewhere in the body where they're getting bloated after meals, or they have just a difficult time thinking, concentrating. Maybe they have chronic back pain. Maybe they have rashes. Sleep issues are huge. Insomnia, trouble staying asleep, trouble falling asleep. Maybe some underlying depression or anxiety. So we want to take those things because that's really good information, and we want to dig a little deeper and say, okay, where could there be some imbalances or dysfunction going on underneath the surface that we can then correct? A lot of times in medicine, you present with a symptom and you get a medication, and the medication is used to suppress that symptom. And that is kind of a very typical approach. We don't want to do that because those symptoms are information to us. They're telling us there's a warning light, there's something going on in the body that we need to correct. You don't have symptoms for no reason. So what we want to do is we want to take those symptoms, or even maybe some preliminary abnormalities on lab work. What I tend to see every day is I see some creeping blood sugars, some rising blood sugar levels or rising insulin levels. I see a rising C-reactive protein or a generalized inflammatory marker. Or I may see some imbalances in your red blood cells, or some like homocysteine, for example. That's another inflammatory marker that we see high quite a bit, or even ferritin, which is the stored form of iron in the body. So we want to look at these things and go, okay, why do you have these imbalances? So I can find a lot of those things on preliminary lab work, but it may not give me the full picture. I may not be able to see what's the system in the body that's the most imbalanced. Where is there some underlying stress, maybe some toxin-related issues, some exposure-related issues like heavy metals or mold or chemicals that you're being exposed to on a frequent or chronic basis that's actually causing some irregularities in the body. So what I want to do is I want to talk to you a little bit about another option we have for testing. It's called biomeridian testing. It looks at the energy pathways within the body and can help us harness more information. So I want Molly here to talk to you a little bit more about that and explain what we can do with this type of testing that will help us harness more information, because our goal is really to take those maybe chronic symptoms or those lab irregularities and say, where are those biggest imbalances that we can then correct? So Molly, can you explain, if I had a patient come to me and say, I have brain fog, I have bloating after meals, I get these chronic infections, I get sick about 4 times a year, why? I can do some lab work and find maybe low vitamin D levels, or I could say maybe you have some leaky gut markers that are starting to show up. But if I wanted to say to this patient, we want to peel back the layers of the onion, and really find those biggest imbalances. Can you tell me, with what you have available at our clinic here, how we can proceed?
Well, what you're describing is a general feeling of unwellness. And a lot of people just kind of don't feel well, whether they can identify the symptoms or not. They just know that what they're feeling is not normal or not healthy. You know, like, is this the way I'm really supposed to feel? And like when you talked about toxins, that's really important, because when you were mentioning about toxins and suppressing them into your body so that you can't get them out, that's when they start finding a home in the body. And these toxins will, when they realize they can't get out because you're suppressing them, whether you're taking a medication or let's say you break out in hives. That's what I do. So if I have a toxin in my body, I break out in hives. And so of course the natural thing would be to suppress that symptom. So whether you're rubbing cortisone, all over your body, but it suppresses the toxin, whatever that may be. And then the toxin finds a home in the body. And then after it's been in the body for a while, it's like, gosh, I'm going to be here for a while. Now I'm going to get into the cells. So these toxins then get into the cells. And then after they've been in the cells for a while, they start duplicating and replicating. And then we have cell death and degeneration. And that's when we're really advanced in a chronic disease. And so what I can do in my biomeridian testing is find out where you are in that cascade of, are there toxins in your body? What system or what meridian are they that are causing these imbalances, these toxins, and how far along are they, and what do we need to do to correct them? So there's a whole section of like invisible, Dr. Keneally likes to refer to it as the invisible, that blood test, conventional testing cannot see or cannot identify. So there's a theory that, like cancer, we deal with a lot of cancer patients or people that have chronic disease, whether it's Lyme disease or whatever, that there's a whole cascade of time that cannot be identified by conventional medicine. That's when I do my testing that I can pick up, because they're so subtle. We can, through the meridians, we can test on a very subtle level that we see changes. We can see daily changes. A lot of conventional testing, whether it's blood testing or MRIs or different kinds of scans, can identify certain things if they can see it in the blood or see it on an X-ray or see it on an MRI. But what I can pick up is subtleties in the body that maybe you're feeling something that you don't even realize it's abnormal. Like a lot of times I'll ask somebody, oh, do you feel bad? And they're like, oh no, I don't feel real good, but I'm okay. I don't have any symptoms. But what's interesting is, like, let's say I find fungus or, some type of a mold or parasites, and I put them, or even heavy metals, and I find that in my scan, and these are the results. And then I start asking them questions, and, oh yeah, I have amalgams, or, oh yes, I eat sushi all the time. Or I can ask them questions based on what I find, that there's no way that they haven't given me that information, and there's no way that I would know that other than what I'm seeing in my test. But I know what they eat, I know what kind of activities they do, I know where they've been or what they've been exposed to by my results. And I can ask them, and they're like, yeah, how would you know that? And then I put them on a protocol, and through working with Heidi, with going to Liliana for nutrition and the EVOX, because emotions are a big thing too. I won't get into that right now, but there's so many different aspects of why somebody might not feel good. And with all of our different things that we can test them with, we can kind of, like Heidi's saying, peel back the layers. But then after they take the protocol, they come back and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that I didn't feel good, because now I feel really good.
I see that quite a bit.
Yes.
I didn't realize that I lived in this state of unwellness, because it's just, you get used to it.
Yeah.
So some people go, wow, after a month on a certain protocol, my brain fog's gone away. I didn't realize I couldn't think clearly until I can think clearly.
Well, and it's kind of like, I always liken it to like the frog in the cream, because It's like, you kind of like don't realize it, and the longer you're in it, all of a sudden you're like, this is my normal. This is how I feel. This is how I'm supposed to feel. And I have a lot of patients that ask me, well, I think I feel this way because of my age. Don't you think it's because of my age? And I'm like, no, no, your age really doesn't have anything to do with it, other than you've been around a lot longer to keep, dealing and living with this chronic disease. I have teenagers that come in that feel worse than 85-year-olds just because of their lifestyle. Their, the food that they eat, no exercise, no water, just drinking pop or whatever. So it's like people don't realize that age really should not contribute to unwellness. It's our lifestyle. It's the way that we think. That's a big thing. It's like that's the most important thing, is the way we think. And when I tell patients, they'll come in and they'll ask me, and people that are scared, and they'll say, what do you see as far as what helps people the most feel better? And I said, you can take all the medicine that you want, or all the supplements, or do all the treatments, but if your head's not right, like if you're not thinking positive and loving and these things that are so important, and get like any kind of hatred or any kind of resentment out of your system, it doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to help you. And so that's number one. And I send all my patients to Liliana because that's so important. Nutrition. People don't realize how important nutrition is. And a lot of people think they're already eating healthy. Do you get that a lot?
A lot.
Yeah, they're going, oh, well, I already eat healthy. And I'm like, okay, well, let's start talking about what you eat. Or I'll give them a list of things that I'm like, well, do you eat any of these? And they go, well, yes, I eat everything on this list. So it's just important to become educated. I think that's the biggest thing that I like to do with patients, is educate them, because I'm learning every day, and I'm learning a lot. And I think that I know so much, and then I learn more and I realize, oh my gosh, I've got so much more to learn. So it's educating the patients, and we're being educated all the time too. And it's like there's always so much information of how to be healthier and how to help the patients that we have.
What I see every day is people don't realize the power they have, both with their mind, in terms of if you've already determined in your mind that you're not going to get well, or that you can't ever feel better, then you're telling every cell of your body that. Mm-hmm. And so we have to bathe ourselves in not just positive energy, but also the hope, and even putting that forward. Mm-hmm. Before we even feel that way, we can even say to our bodies, I can feel better and I will feel better. I'm just going through the motions of getting there, but I'm going to make that even my priority ahead of time. So we can also help patients switch their mindsets a little bit.
Right.
In terms of nutrition, I think nutrition is one of the most important things that we have control over. If you think of every single culture in every single country, what do we all do as humans for the entire course of our lives? From the moment we're here on earth to the moment we die, we're eating every single day. And the purpose of eating is nourishment. But we've created a culture where the purpose of eating is pleasure, or good food, or something that tastes good, or something that makes me feel differently. And so one thing that I would really like to just portray is the power we have with our food choices. We can put good things in our body, we can put bad things in our body. Sometimes we put things that we think are good, but they're actually creating inflammation because we have food sensitivities. So when we send patients to Liliana, our goal is to really help them transform their relationship with food and start to find new ways of eating, even new ways of preparing food, so that we can get them back on the path to health. We can give you all the fancy drugs, all the fancy treatments, all these amazing IV therapies, but if we can't change your mindset, or if we can't change your diet, those things are only going to go so far. So Liliana, when we send patients to you and you start to investigate, what is their relationship with food, and what are their eating patterns, and how do they cook, or maybe they don't cook and they're eating out a lot, how can you start to take that, peel back the layer of...
Put the puzzle together.
Put the puzzle together and peel back that layer of the onion to just help people transform the way they eat.
Well, I think, one of the things that everybody's touched on here is that we're really all about educating. And so one of the beautiful things that by the time they get to me, they have already had a lot of diagnostic workup, whether they have seen Molly, so I know they've got parasites, candida, or that you had them do a heavy metals test, and we could identify, just like I did the other day. I did a blood test and it said I had no metals in my blood, and I'm like, this is impossible. I know I do. So of course, since we're all about really cross-referencing everything, Heidi said, well, let's just do a challenge test where you take some EDTA, and then your body, it forces it to excrete the heavy metals out. Well, I was for sure I had mercury, since I had a whole mouthful of amalgam when I was little, but I've been very careful as far as detoxification throughout my older part of my life, as I'm 63 now. I had my feelings out like 25 years ago, But anyway, it was really quite interesting. Now, had I not had taken this test, I would never know that I had a lot more than normal, as I said, 3 times the amount of lead in my system. Now, of course, as a prevention mindset, the lead, it has an affinity to your bones and neurological. So I'm now in the mindset of, okay, great. Now that I have this information, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to start doing, heavy metal chelation, EDTA oral, so that I can prevent any issues as far as osteoporotic issues or bone fragility or any neurological disorder as I get older. Memory, we all want to keep our memory. So these tests are invaluable for prevention. And so when they come to me with all this information, a lot of times they're looking at me like, what do I do with all this information? I went and saw Molly, and then I saw, I've got these tests, and how do I put it all together? So my job is really to put it all together and make it as simple as I possibly can by educating them. One, we want to say, let's avoid those toxins. So again, if it's mercury, let's avoid fish, and let's do chelation and so forth. But if they've got things like candida or fungus, then we got to put them on a diet that doesn't allow for this opportunistic organism to continue to multiply. And so one of the biggest things is sugar. Now, most of my patients don't realize that everything from the plant kingdom is sugar, whether it's a vegetable, a fruit, a bean, or a grain. And so, as you were saying earlier, yeah, I eat really healthy. And then when we start to say, okay, well, tell me what breakfast, lunch, and dinner looks like. And they're like, okay, I'm having, cereal for breakfast with some, orange juice. And I'm having for lunch a turkey sandwich and some, chips and a little salad on the side. And you're just kind of like, okay, well, this is the standard American diet, all right? Which is fine and dandy if you want to just basically survive your lifetime, but not thrive. And so my goal is to really just educate them on how much protein and carbs and fats that they need according to how many calories they burn. And when and depending on what their needs are, if they need to lose weight or if they have cancer or candida, any of these issues, I base it upon the needs when they come to me. So I try to make it as simple as possible, because obviously it can be overwhelming. You get on the internet and whether it's raw food diet or whether it's a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet, we have a very educated population. They've done their research. So when they come to us, because we do have a cancer center here, they've read so much and they come to me in fear. And so my job is to really, say, okay, even cancer is not a curtain call, it's a wake up call. And how do we need to look at your lifestyle? As both of you said, dealing with emotions, dealing with food, dealing with the way you love, dealing with exercise, the way you move. How do we look at everything? So I look at food very simply, protein, bottom line, if you're a meat eater, it's anything that has eyeballs on it or came from eyeballs, whether it's an egg from a chicken or milk from a cow, what in that mindset. Of course, there's a lot of protein in vegetarian sources as well. And then everything from the plant kingdom that grew on a bush, a tree, or a plant is sugar. And then everything, as far as nuts and seeds is fats. Now, protein and protein and fats are essential to life. Without it, we can't have beautiful repair. We can't have beautiful skin, hair, and nails. So often, people will come in with the mindset that fat is the enemy, and they're on these really low fat diets, and they wonder why their hair is falling out and their thyroid's not functioning, their hormones are off. And I just, okay, let's just kind of dispel these myths here. It wouldn't be called essential if we had to limit it, right? When our body really produces about 80% of the cholesterol we have, we're only taking 20% in from the foods that we eat. So I get them to really look at, as far as the fats, we want to have those fats that are not hydrogenated, that, really haven't been adulterated. I tell patients, don't fry your foods, because, you're creating a lot of toxins, whether it is a fried meat with this excessive amount of amines in there and the carcinogen of too much, crisp on barbecue. So I really try to teach them, if you're going to have, a meat, pair it up with a chlorophyll-rich green salad so that you can support, this mindset of trying to keep an acid and alkaline mindset. And so when it comes to really putting it all together, we just want to be really simple. Here's my protein, whether it's vegetarian or not. Here's my carbohydrates. All this what I'm having here, if it's leafy greens and watery and it shrinks when you cook it, it's extremely low carbohydrates. So how simple can that be? I put it in my mouth. It's not sweet. I cooked it. It shrank. So I always say, shrinking bitter, better foods are going to get you where you want to go. So whether you want to shrink your blood sugar issue, or you want to shrink your waistline, or we want to, decrease the disease or the autoimmune disorder, we got to get the glucose down as low as possible, because I would say that is one food that all opportunistic organisms thrive off of. And so when they realize that a piece of bread is 18 grams of sugar, their hair kind of goes straight up, and their potatoes 45 grams of sugar. So I say, okay, our intention is not to take all this away, but to replace anything that we take out. So I give them recipes. Here's how to make a keto bread. It says 5 carbohydrates instead of your 36 that you're having on 2 pieces of bread. Instead of having potatoes, let's go for cauliflower mashed potatoes. So I'm very passionate about food. I don't think that we should ever give a flavor. As you said, it's all about breaking bread with each other, celebration, bringing the food. And so, one of my I would say my gifts that I have is to be able to inspire in people the joy of getting back into the kitchen. People will say, oh my gosh, I hate to cook, or this or that. And oftentimes they just hate to cook because 2 things. They don't like cleaning up, and maybe somebody told them this wasn't that good. So immediately it's like, okay, I don't know how to cook, so I'm just not even gonna try. But when I just say, let's try one recipe a week, and here's a recipe, and let's just see how that turns out. And I'm telling you, every time they're like, hey, you know what? I think I'm getting to be a pretty good cook, and my kids ate it, and my husband thought it was really tasty. So again, it's really taking all the information we have, giving them a whole new scope of how to live their life in a healthy way, choosing organic foods, very low sugar carbohydrate foods, things that are good fats that are not adulterated and overheated, your nuts, your seeds, your avocados, things of that nature. So I say, if you got your protein, you got a big healthy salad on there and some steamed vegetables, you're always going to win every time, whether it's candida, whether it's a cancer diet. It's just when we start bringing in those really heavy, sugars, and I'm not even talking about processed sugars, because those for sure are out the door, right? Because you don't want to have any chemicals and colors and toxins and hydrogenation oils. But all of these other things, like grains, for example, the glyphosates on grains. Don't you find, Heidi, more and more people have gut issues ever before in your testing?
Oh my gosh,
it's insanity.
Undeniable. Yeah.
So you're just like, why is this happening? And so when we look at it, it's just the way our grains are being, I would say, cultivated, whether they're GMO or they're sprayed with glyphosates, to keep the mold down. I mean, as Molly said, the unseen toxins that we're exposed to minute by minute. And so this is why it's so essential that we look at the whole picture, and that we have these tests, like this lead test, I would have never known, right? To be able to prevent things. We have Molly, where, like I said, you couldn't see it in my blood, but I saw it on, energy testing, what Molly does. So I knew that I had it, but until I, got a little bit further, pulled it out of the fat cells, because that's where heavy metals live, did I even know. But I would not have even thought about it had I not had a energy test that said I had heavy metals. So I did.
That's a good example, because you look good, you feel good.
Yeah.
You don't have a symptom of lead.
Yeah, I have no symptoms. Yeah.
But we uncovered this big thing that could potentially become a problem in the future.
Right. Exactly. Right. So I can't say enough how important it is. Rather than to treat mindset, is to prevent mindset, because then, face it, we are in an epidemic right now, right? Yes. Heidi, wow, it's just like 1 out of 2 people getting cancer. This is ridiculous. I think we're like 47th in the nation. Heart disease,
autoimmune disease keeps rising.
It's crazy, and I think
and we can live healthy lives, but even the healthiest person with the greatest genes is now exposed to these things that they have no control over.
Well, also the technology, like modern technology in our, like the Western culture, exposes us to a lot more toxins and dangers than if we lived in a third world country. You don't think of it that way, but it's so true, trying to, create more food, putting GMOs in, like all of the food, antibiotics and meat, like so many things that are really destroying our cells that we don't even know. And just talking about the invisible, it's like we don't realize that, the petroleum in the air, so many things now, plastic in the air we're breathing in. So many things. I tested a patient the other day, and she hadn't been feeling well. She's had headaches, and there was plastic, and I'm like, I wonder where that's coming from. And we started talking about it, and she's been drinking. She's been on the road, so she drinks all of her water out of plastic bottles where she never did it before. But that's what was coming up. But it's like, and that's the beauty of my test too, is that we can just pick up things like, who would think, well, I need a blood test to see if I have plastics in my body. You know what I mean? So it's just like, the combination of everything that we do and, relying on each other to help each other with what each of us can do to offer information to the patient.
Absolutely. And as you can see, it takes a village to really get people better. And we live in a world where no one practitioner can revolutionize your health anymore. We have to take the gifts, the talents, the knowledge,
a team effort,
all these technologies, and as a team harness all of these things to be able to help partner with you to get you better. And so we invite you to do that with us. Help us help you in partnering with you to not only find those triggers or those warning lights, but then now start to prevent chronic disease, start to reverse chronic disease, and maybe change your mindset towards, okay, what are those things that I can do today that I have control over that will help turn my health around and give you a better quality of life?
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that I want to mention is that oftentimes people say, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what I have, right? And I said, well, putting your head in the sand does not work. So you want to know.
So we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today to learn a little bit more about how you can prevent chronic illness and start to turn maybe some of those symptoms around so that we can help optimize your health. We are going to be answering questions, so if you have any further questions, things you want elaborated on or clarified, please post those questions so that we can answer them. Also, if you'd like to come in for a tour, we do tours every day here at the clinic, and we're happy to accommodate that, so let us know. And if you'd like to book an appointment with any one of these practitioners, please let us know, and we'd love to accommodate that as well.